Rick Thigpen, who is a Vice President for Governmental Affairs at PSE&G, and a good friend of the family, right? But they want rate increase, right? They want rate increases, and there's a public process associated with that. And
We don't want rate.
You need a rate increase, all right? Or you think you need a rate increase. And there's reciprocity associated with that. So this conversation really is about how do we participate to make certain that there's development and redevelopment in our community whenever our dollars are being invested. Our panel includes Myra Campbell, the mayor of Asbury Park, the newest African American mayor in the state of New Jersey, I believe that's the case. All right. Senator Sandra Cunningham, who represents Jersey City, and a longtime friend of New Jersey BIC, Rick Thigpen from PSE&G, and Peter Montag from the Environmental Research Foundation. He's replacing Dr. Nikki Sheets from Thomas Edison College. Unfortunately, Nikki has some health difficulties, and we need to keep him in prayer. So what I'll ask Senator Cunningham, because she has another pressing engagement to make her observations and comments. Mayor Campbell, Rick, and then Mike, and then we'll have at it. Okay. Senator?
Can we say?
Yeah. This is informal, relaxed.
Okay. Well, thank you. First of all, let me apologize because there was, there was a scheduling conflict in my office, and I had this beginning earlier than it is, and unfortunately I do have to be back in Jersey City by 6 o'clock. But I did want to just talk briefly about when we think about Sandy and the impact that the superstorm had on New Jersey. I think we have to remember that in urban areas we were impacted and we're still living through it. And I'll give you some examples. First of all, housing in urban areas. And we had this conversation earlier. In urban areas we have apartment dwellings more than in some of the other parts of the state. We had a problem in Jersey City specifically where we had senior citizens who were living in senior citizen buildings. They were pretty much taken care of. We went in to help them. But we had senior citizens who lived.
So, we wanted to have a conversation from different perspectives. So, Mayor Campbell, Mayor of Asbury Park, is going to provide us a little bit of a snapshot about his comments about what she's experiencing, and followed by Rick, and then Pete. Okay.
Thank you for inviting me, and I just want to give you a snapshot view of Asbury Park. Asbury Park is a town that's 1.4 square miles, so it's not a big town. It's diverse like any other urban area, but when we start talking about the storm primarily affected the ocean front, but not to a great degree. When I say not to a great degree, Asbury Park is higher than much of the other shore towns. Even though if you watch CNN, you probably saw a lot of interviews being taken at the Jersey Shore. There were business owners that were up on the shore, but I'll tell you one of the things that happened. And I assumed office on July 1st. And so while I was in Jersey part of the time during the storm, I had a sciatic nerve, and they could have taken me and my house away. That's how much pain I was in. But at the beginning of this year, and I should say a couple months after I assumed office, what I did is I called people in from emergency management within the city. So we had the fire chief, who's responsible for emergency evacuation. We had some representation from social services, Chamber of Commerce, some of the business people. So there are probably about 10 of us sitting at the table. The purpose of that was to find out, for me, what happened last year, what worked, and also some of the shortcomings were, because I am convinced whether it's this year or some other year, it's going to happen again. I'm not sure how many of you watched the news this morning, but two things. Al Gore put out a video, An Inconvenient Truth, I believe is the name of it.
Yes.
I encourage everyone to watch that. The climate is getting warmer and warmer. The water is rising. The glaciers are melting. And that all says we better get ready. And it's because we have, over a period of, I don't know how many years, have abused the environment. As far as the storm last year, and I might mention this, that it's not just the water, because we found any number of people that had mildew because the electricity had gone out. Many people did not have generators, so you have mildew crawling up your basement walls because of the sitting water. There were some people that took advantage of the money. Some people had insurance, some people didn't. But surprisingly to me, there's some people that didn't feel it was necessary.
Rick, PSE&G, what's going on? What y'all doing to us?
So thank you. So my name's Rick Thigpen. So I'll talk about climate change for starters. It's been raised several times, and we were talking beforehand about the environmental impact of electric generation, right? So public services is a big company. It's got about $29 billion in assets. It's got about 10,000 employees. And we provide electricity to about 3 out of 4 people in New Jersey, as well as natural gas to a bunch of homes. And we generate electricity also using uranium. We have nuclear power. We also burn natural gas and coal, and as well as solar to generate electricity. So, you know, it's about, in New Jersey, you spend about over $10 billion every year on electricity. It's not a bad business to be in, right? And as we've learned from the storms recently, when you're out of electricity today, it's very different than it used to be. People can no longer tolerate being without electricity. It's now more today than yesterday an integral part of your lifestyle. You know, by living in America, if you're a citizen of England or Japan, you use about half the electricity we Americans use. We use a lot of electricity, and people don't want to be without it. And I've noticed they don't like paying for it either. That's a joke. So having said that, climate change, let me talk about that. In the last 3 years, we've had the largest 3 storms in the history of our service territory. Hurricane Irene, don't forget Hurricane Irene. Hurricane Irene was, and I just want to tell you a little bit because each storm is specific, and we're going to talk about how we're going to deal with these things. You need to understand a little bit. Hurricane Irene was heavy rain, especially in North Jersey. So it flooded the rivers, the Ramapo River, the Hackensack River, the Passaic River, and on and on and on, the Raritan River. So where we had substations on riverbanks, they were inundated with water, and they caused extensive power outages. And like all hurricanes, high winds. And you notice there's large numbers of overhead lines. We call it the outside plant, the overhead electric distribution system, which is affected by wind and storms. Then remember the snowstorm around Halloween? Very different storm. Snow with leaves still on the trees caused enormous amount of damage to the overhead electric system, more than Hurricane Irene actually, because the #1 cause of power outages are trees on power lines. And it had a very substantial impact. Then we come to Superstorm Sandy, a very different storm than the other two. For the first time we had about a 13-foot wall of water come ashore. In our service territory, it's the Raritan Bay. We weren't down at the shore. They have other companies, I'd say less fortunate companies, other companies serving them. 13-foot wall of water that impacted all of our stations along the North Bay, the Raritan Bay, Seawarren. And a lot of those stations were built when Franklin Roosevelt was president, and they never had this problem before until Hurricane Superstorm Sandy. And they went underwater. And rule #1 I learned as a lawyer about electricity: water and electricity don't mix. And you add salt water to it, it's even worse. It had a very devastating impact on the system. And you know those oil refineries, one of the biggest oil refinery states in the country, they run on electricity. And they're served by our substations in Seawarren. And it went underwater. Anybody notice those gas lines? During superstorms? No? You didn't notice? Gas lines. The lines, people in line to buy gas for the cars. There was a gas shortage. Well, the stations that provided the electricity went out of power, and the stations that provided the interstate pipelines, their power to pump the gas, went out of power.
So food prices are expected to be 40% higher than they are now. Cities will feel 12 to 16 degrees warmer. Cities are always warmer than the countryside. The hottest day in Newark and in Camden will feel like something between 116 and 124 degrees. It's going to be miserable. You won't be able to work outside. People will be short-tempered and angry and upset and feeling bad.